Welcome to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast.
What is going on, you beautiful blessed boys and girls? Thanks for tuning in to Tyrompers No Limit Podcast. It's episode 38. We are fired up, man. You guys know we're as fired up today, but as you can tell, in the house today, we got one of the strongest men in the entire world. This man is competing next week to prove it at a strongman competition. There's also a man that co-runs Las Vegas retreats with me. We host a bunch of men out here. We're expanding that into Austin, where he lives next year. Also, this is a man that is opening his very own gym as we speak right now. He's been working on that all morning. It's also a man that drinks a majority, almost as much water probably as I drink every day too, as you can see by that massive jug. This is a man that no one can believe is in his young 20s because of look at the guy's body, his physique, and also, as you'll see when he starts speaking, if I ever stop talking, his wisdom. He's got a lot of knowledge around everything that we'll talk to. This is a man that is one of the most knowledgeable people in the entire world today, guys. So lock in around fitness, health, nutrition. This is my brother, my best friend. I love this guy. Big Jerm, welcome to the podcast, Jeremy Clevenger. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks for having me on, man. Thanks for the invite.
Dude,
for about 2 weeks now.
We've been talking about this for like a year. I don't know why. I think I started this thing 6-8 months ago. I don't know what we've been doing, man. It seems like we've tried to connect a couple times. Pretty busy, but I'm super pumped to get you on, get you to share all your story. I learned so much from you, man, and I know everybody else will too. So maybe give some people who don't know you. I assume a lot of people that follow me follow you, but give us a rundown, a little bit, 2-minute elevator speech of who Big Jerm is.
Yeah, so I'm 24. I just moved to Austin, Texas back in September of 2021. Married. Me and my wife have been married for coming up on 2 years. It'll be in 12 days. Opening a gym, like Tyler said, opening a gym. We're looking for land for a building right now, but me and Tanner have been going in essentially on buying equipment or buying equipment off of Facebook Marketplace. We've just been trying to get everything done on the back end so that way once we do find land and once we do find a building, then we can just expedite the process. Get some t-shirts made. I'm working with a few designs and stuff right now that we're working on getting out there and getting them out to the public. Just doing a bunch of background work and kind of laying that foundation. But outside of that, I do online strength and conditioning coaching. I work with everybody from 18 to I think my oldest guy is 62 right now. So age is just a number when it comes to training, and that's what I tell everybody. I've got guys who are 55 and are some of the strongest guys that are on my team right now. And so I just continually coach them and continually work with them. And we develop strong habits. We develop obviously the mindset around coaching, which I know that you're really big on. And we really just don't let anything hold us back. So I kind of lay the foundation for them. But other than that, yeah.
That's awesome, man. We got a lot to touch on. One thing I'm going to say before we even start is, Big Jerm and I co-host retreats out here in Vegas. We've done 3 together, coming up on our 4th year in a month or so. And I'll never forget that first one, brother, where we go to the gym and it's just Big Jerm just in his element. We all left there and every guy said it was like watching a chemist, a world-class chemist in a chemistry lab. Like you were just so on point. You tweaked a couple things with my deadlift that got me up to and coached me through to get to be able to deadlift 2 times my body weight when I think when we started, I was like at 160. I could barely do my body weight, man. Then you got me up to doing 2 times my body weight. You're just a man that understands strength, fitness. You have a real passion around it. Can you tell us like when that started or what kind of developed that in you, my man?
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I was the short, chubby kid. I didn't have the great genetics. My dad didn't give me a trainer or anything like that to work with growing up. So I was going into freshman year of high school. I was 5'4", 175 pounds. I wrestled, so I was the short, chubby kid. Like I said, didn't have much muscle mass, but I did find the weight room and had never worked out leading up to that. I think my dad had bought me like one of those cheap Walmart bench sets that I was training on out in the garage and just trying to bench 100 pounds as many times as I could. No rhyme or reason to it. Doing the classic bro split, bench and arms. Essentially, that's all I was doing.
Every guy goes through
that. Exactly. And so once I found the weight room in high school, I saw how it transformed my body. And growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do exactly because I was playing football. I was a 3-sport athlete all the way through high school. And I was like, I'm going to go, every kid's dream, I'm going to go play professional somewhere. I was baseball, wrestling, and can't go professional in wrestling. Baseball, I wasn't good enough at. And football, I was 5'6" or 5'7", and I was playing on one of the biggest school teams in the country. And so I was undersized and all of that. I knew that wasn't going to be my path, but I did find that being in the weight room and helping people get in shape was a career path that I could go into. So I saw what it did to my body from freshman year to my senior year, I went from 5'4", 175 to 5'10", 185. And so I grew 6 inches, but I only put on 10 pounds. And I was really able to recomp my body in a way that obviously helped me perform better, but it helped with my confidence. It helped me feel better. I wasn't getting gas walking up the stairs. I wasn't getting gas going through just regular wrestling matches and football stuff. And I could just tell not only the physical stuff, but what it did for me mentally and how people treated me. Like when you're short and fat, a lot of times you're like the life of the party. You're the funny kid and stuff like that. You start getting a lot more respect from people. People are going to treat you differently because you're in better shape, and they see, hey, this guy takes care of his body. He obviously has what he needs to get to that point. And so just seeing how, like I said, not only it affected me physically, but how everybody around me started treating me. You start getting invited to more parties. You start getting invited to more events and stuff like that. So saw that happen.
Turns out ladies notice you a little more when you take the shirt off too, man.
Oh yeah, exactly. And so when I realized that I could do this do it for a living, I was like, okay, how do I get into this? And so obviously the first path that they take you through high school is, go to college. And so I went to college for my first year, and I saw, and they were like, oh, you can make $16 an hour. Obviously coming out of high school, you have no money. So you think that $16 an hour is a ton. And for some people it is. Like, it's great if you come out and you're making that, but what I didn't realize was that was only like 15 to 20% of what the actual gym was taking. And so I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do this. So I went to college. I had a full ride scholarship, lost that after my first year. I failed anatomy. They say it weeds it out of people, and it did, because growing up, I never really had to study in school because everything came easy to me. You do one chapter at a time. It's slow and developed. I was in Excel classes all the way through. And then once I got to college, it's like, oh, here's 7 chapters at a time, and you're going to take a test over all of it. Just didn't know how to study. And so obviously, like I said, that's nobody's fault but my own. But honestly, that ended up being one of the biggest blessings, because then from there, I just got into powerlifting, got into strongman, and I started learning from a lot of bright people in the space. And so once I figured that out, I was like, okay, I can actually make a living off this. Like, I went from, and I've talked about it on Twitter, making $1,500 a month to up to 6 to 8K in a matter of like 2 years. And I was working a job. I quit that job, went full on into online coaching and in-person coaching. And from there, it just kind of took me to where I am now.
That's awesome, man. And I know you have such a passion for helping people, man. And it sounds like, I didn't really notice about you till you're saying it, but it sounds like, you kind of helped yourself first, right? Like I didn't know you were kind of like the short, chubby kid that, and I think you alluded to that point of, I was just on a walk with a client a couple hours ago, and he said, people are starting to treat me a little different. His body is changing, and he's, even at work, people are giving him different respect. We say don't judge a book by its cover, but it's pretty obvious that, like, as human beings, we're going to notice, and it alludes to other things, right? Like, I can look at you and say, this is a very disciplined man. He's going to do things that he wants, or do things that he might not even want to do some days because he knows it's better for him. Well, that's going to seep over into the other areas of your life too. And I think that's the coolest thing about your training is, yeah, you're changing some guys' bodies, right? But it's also changing lives, changing generations, changing the way that their wife might view them, that they view themselves, that they get, Can you talk about some of your clients and some of the impact? And I'm going to dote on you after that, because, man, you've changed my life in a lot of ways too. But, I've seen firsthand a lot of guys from our retreat that hire you, and that just seeing their bodies change within not only their bodies, but their minds and lives. Can you kind of talk us through how people contact you, what that process looks like too?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients have actually come, obviously through Twitter, but most of them are through a men's group that I'm in. And it's a bunch of guys who are all heading towards the same thing. They all want to be the best at what they do, whether that's in work, whether that's in the relationships, whether that's in just day-to-day life. And a big part of that for every man is to be physically in shape, because the way that I see it is how you do one thing is how you're going to do everything. And so if you can't even control your hunger, if you can't cut out 30 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day even to go do some type of physical activity, how do you expect the rest of your life to continue to progress in a positive direction? And so that's what I'm really big on when I'm working with guys, is laying that foundation. Like, everybody wants to start off when they get back in the gym, they want to go 5 days a week and train 2 hours a day. And that lasts for all of 3 days. And then they're sore for 7 days and they don't go back for 3 months. And so what I'm really big on, especially with a lot of my guys being middle age, one is injury prevention and making sure that they can just do the movements. I've had guys who have knee issues and back issues. I had one guy who couldn't deadlift the bar he's trap bar deadlifting 300, I think 315 or 325 for sets of 3 or 4. And so like he had crippling back pain, literally could not bend down to grab the bar. And we made a few tweaks to his positioning, worked on his weak areas. It wasn't actually his low back that was weak. It was his core and his hamstrings. And so we went through and tightened those up. We fixed his positioning, and now he's able to deadlift. And the first time that he deadlifted 225, he sent me a video like afterwards, and he was literally crying after he'd done it because he could not deadlift at all. And he went from there to what a lot of people consider is a decent amount of weight to be 55 or 56 and be like, yeah, I deadlifted 225 today after not being able to do that ever. And so that's just one of the examples. I have another guy who has, I can't think of what it's called, but it's muscular dystrophy. And so naturally his body eats away at his muscle, and it comes with all kinds of other complications and stuff like that. And we've been able to take him from being just like your average tall, lean kid to actually looking like a tank. And I'm sure that a lot of people follow him on Twitter. His name's Austin. But he's talked about it a lot in just his journey. But what I don't let people do is let their circumstances hold them back from whatever it is that they're wanting to do. He wants to compete in a powerlifting meet. He started off from ground zero. He couldn't parallel squat to depth because his balance was so off. Just as a part of the muscular dystrophy, we were able to develop his balance. He puts in a ton of work. Like, this kid is probably one of the hardest workers that I've ever worked with. And through putting in that work and having a plan and just sticking to the plan and getting in every day. There's days that he doesn't get his workouts until 10 o'clock at night because he had to stay over because he's a surgical tech. And so he's literally at the hospital helping people all day on his feet, doing all this stuff, but he doesn't miss. And that's what gets him to where he is. And so that's just two of the stories that I have. I've worked with over 300 guys right now. And a lot of them have very similar stories, but it just comes, they want to drop some weight. They want to put on some size. They reach out to me via Twitter. We get on a call and we chat with them and see if they're a fit. And if they're a fit, then we get things rolling and move forward from there.
Man, that's so awesome, brother. And I remember a season of life, you were programming my training, and then all of a sudden I was going 4 or 5 days a week. I was one of those guys, let's do it 6. Let's go. Let's get it, And then all of a sudden, man, we got our third 1-year-old a while back. And bro, I went to not sleeping, it was a good night if I was getting 4 hours. And I remember kind of texting you like, man, bro, I'm starting to burn out. And we hopped on a call, and I remember you tweaked it to 3 days a week and a lot more walking, a lot more movement. And you really opened my eyes to, hey man, it's not just a one size fits all. Like, I just thought before that, well, you just go to the gym, you do as hard as you can every day, and you know that's just how you go. But you taught me there's so much more to recovery, to active recovery. And actually, I was probably doing more damage to myself by going 6 days a week on no rest. And you really helped me see the light with that more is not better, and that when you work with a professional like yourself, you can learn these things, and then you can just get the results that are just without even putting in as much effort. You can get better results.
Absolutely. Yeah. Recovery is arguably I would say for everybody, is one of the most underrated things, and the things that people don't prioritize. Like, they want to go hard, run on 4 hours of sleep, drink 700 milligrams of caffeine a day, and they want to fast in the middle of it. So it's like, you guys are literally not doing anything to rebuild your body. And so the way that I like to explain it to people is, when you go into the gym, the purpose is to stimulate the muscles, and then you recover afterwards. If you go into the gym and you stimulate and annihilate your muscles and just burn yourself to the ground, and you're not sleeping, and you're not getting your meals in afterwards, and you're not staying hydrated, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and you're just digging yourself into a deeper hole. So yeah, like you said, for a lot of guys that come through busy season, whether that be work, whether that be family, whatever that is, just go through and make a few small adjustments. You don't have to go into the gym 5 days a week, because your body doesn't know the difference between stress. If it's emotional stress or mental stress, your body's going to respond to it similarly as physical stress in the gym. So when you have your mental stress up higher, then you can drop your workouts back. Now, I'm not saying because you're stressed out all the time, don't go to the gym, but you can cut back 1 or 2 days if that's what your body needs to keep you progressing.
Yep. And you can keep doing other stuff, moving, just taking walks, chasing your kids around the park. You can do some other fun things to stay moving, right? And keep you going towards those goals. Can I ask you, Jerm, what kind of motivates you day in and day out, man? Because your lifts are, dude, I've gotten the pleasure and privilege to work out with you quite a few times. And it's, some of the activities I would have never thought to do, these big, heavy farmers carries and all, you go so hard at the gym, and you're so intentional about it. You help so many people. What keeps driving you every day?
Honestly, I think it's, I've never really thought about that. I just kind of show up and do it because that's what I've always known. But if I had to narrow it down to one thing, I would say it's probably proving to myself that I'm able to do things that most people aren't able to do. I'm able to push myself and push my mind to limits where most people would shut their minds off and shut their bodies off. I can't do this. And so I like to figure out, okay, what's that point for me? And then push a little bit further than that. Like I've weighed 200 pounds and I've carried a 700-pound yoke on my back and had no problem doing it at all. And as soon as I got down with that, I was like, okay, I wonder what 800 feels like. And so that was my next goal. And so I just constantly keep setting these goals. And what I do is I don't put a number in my head for weight I want to lift, weight, like actual weight that I want to weigh, competitions that I want to win, because as soon as I accomplish one, it's on to the next one. So like and I'm sure you've seen it all over Twitter. Guys are talking about, like, if you think a 315 bench is strong, then that's going to be your ceiling. And so I don't set a ceiling for myself. As soon as I hit 315, I'm like, okay, what is 335? What is 365? What is 405? I do that on everything. I do that on my clients. I do that on essentially everything that I try to progress in. On my finances. Like, okay, I've accomplished this milestone. What's the next one look like? But I'm also very mindful of it, where I don't run myself into the ground trying to chase the next best thing. Like, there's a fine line between being complacent and running yourself into the ground, to where it's essentially detrimental for you. So I'm very mindful of that. And like, I run my goals by my wife, and I run my strength and training goals by Tanner and a lot of the other guys that I work with in the space. So that way I can make sure that I'm staying realistic. Like, with me cutting weight over these last, 12 weeks, having my strength go up a ton hasn't been my main focus. My goal has been to maintain the strength that I had there, but at 25 to 30 pounds less body weight, which is going to be the biggest goal for me, because I knew that if I could get down from where I was at 205, 210, down to 175, and still be able to maintain that strength, then I'm going to have a pretty good shot at winning the competition, which has been my goal this entire time.
Man, so okay, let's talk about some of that strongman training. And dude, I mean, some of these videos that you'll send me, I'm like, I'm showing my wife, I'm showing my dog, I'm like, look at my boy here, dude. I mean, 1,000 pounds, right? Like overhead, you were lifting 1,000 pounds at one time. I mean, there's just some crazy stuff you're doing in these competitions. How do you train and how do you prepare for that stuff specifically? And can you kind of tell the viewers out there some of the stuff you're going to be doing in this strongman competition here coming up?
Yeah, so the way that I set my training up around a competition is I like to reverse engineer it. So I figure out, okay, what's the events that I have to do? Is it going to be more like 1 rep max focus? Is it going to be like a max log? Is it going to be something similar to what I'm doing at this one, where it's an overhead press for reps, which is going to require more conditioning? Is it going to be something that's going to require a ton of conditioning, like sandbag carries, farmer carries, truck pull, stuff like that? And then from there, I reverse engineer it out to the point where I want to start. So I'm like, okay, I have to accomplish these goals. And so I start at the end date, and then I just slowly build my way back. And it takes me a matter of 2 days to lay all this out. And I mean, like 2 days of like 4 or 5 hours a day setting this up. Okay, what does my training need to look like for this period? What does my training need to look like for this period? What does my training need to look like for this period? And then I start at the beginning and work my way through. So if it's going to be something that's going to be, like, for example, this one, I have to do sandbag carries. So I have to pick up a sandbag, run it down, drop it on a sled, run back, pick up another one.
What are the sandbags weigh?
There's actually 2 sandbag events. So the first one is 225 and 250. So I have to pick it up, run it down, drop it on the sled, run back, grab the other one, run it down, drop it on the sled, run back, and then do an arm over arm pull to pull the sled back. So that's a ton of conditioning. Not only that, but it's just also taxing on your back, especially with all the other events that are later on in the day. But then my next one is a sandbag to shoulder. And so I've got to pick up a 175, 200, 225, and 250, and I got to get it done as fast as possible. And that's the way that Strongman set up. Is a lot of the events are, if they're not for like a 1 rep max, then they're for time, and they're how fast can you get it done. So that's just kind of how I set it up. So like I'll start off typically with more volume, and I'll work my way to where I'm about 6 weeks out, and that'll be probably my heaviest training. And then I start to taper it down into it, where I start to drop the volume a little bit, go a little bit lighter, just on the main movements, give my body time to recover. And then once I get 2 weeks out, which is where I am now, I'm like a week and a half out, I'm just doing, this week will be light volume, just practicing the movements, making sure that everything's nailed down. Next week I'll be off because I'll be water cutting. So I'll just be out doing my walks and stuff like that, making sure that my mobility is on point. But other than that, I just making sure that my diet's dialed in, making sure that my sleep's dialed in. Like, I'm getting almost 10 hours of sleep a night right now. just to make sure that my body's primed and ready to go when it's time for the show.
Man, that's awesome. I love following your journeys on there, man. I know you've had some good success in the past too. And I mean, you're literally competing against the strongest people in the entire world. And you alluded to it a little bit ago, but you lean into Tanner, who, shout out to Tanner, man. I love this guy too. He's a great follow on Twitter. And your wife Deb, who's there, and these other champions that you kind of surround yourself with. Has that been kind of an intentional thing that you're going to make sure the people that are in your circle are really promoting the best of you, or how do you go about ensuring that happens?
Yeah, I don't necessarily care that everybody in my circle is like cheering for me, but I make sure that they're all heading for something similar in their direction. You don't have to agree with everything I say. You don't have to agree with all my viewpoints on everything. But as long as I see that you're trying to be better and that you're a respectful person, I'll let you be in my circle. But as soon as you start to be disrespectful, or as soon as I start to see, hey, this person doesn't want better for themselves, I'll have a talk with you about it. And then if it continues, then we'll just part ways. No hard feelings. We'll just go our own ways. But typically when you have that talk with people and you're like, hey, I don't appreciate you doing this, or hey, I've noticed that you've been slacking on this, like what's going on, typically it'll jump them right back up to speed. So I'm not all about like, I don't want to surround myself with a bunch of yes men. I want people who are going to call me out when I'm wrong. And that's kind of why I have Tanner as like my coach, because he helps push me forward. Obviously with my wife, she helps keep me on the right direction as well. But there's some people in my life that have different viewpoints than me politically and training and all this other stuff. And we're all still cool because we understand that, hey, we're all pushing for our own thing in our own direction. Like I said, as long as there's no disrespect, or as long as there's not that lack of pursuit of betterment, if you want to call it that, then I'm totally fine with it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make too, man. And one that we can all learn from, in my opinion, is, dude, it would be weird if we all agree. Like me and you, if we probably listed out top 100 things we believe in, hey, maybe 30 of them we disagree or whatnot. But dude, you're one of my brothers. I love you. Who cares? We both want to be better. We both want to be better versions of ourselves. And how I believe today might not even be how I believe a year and a half down the road too, as I surround myself with smart people who I can learn from and all these things too. So I think that's a really good point to make, that, hey, yeah, as long as you're wanting to be better and improve and hop on board, not negative constantly and draining life from me. Yeah, and hop on board. Let's all go win together, right?
Absolutely.
I love that, man. I want to hop in, and this is something I just started on the pod, but I'm going to call this the love section of the podcast, man. All you guys are champions to get on, because I love Dev, man. She was one of the first accounts that I actually came across on Twitter too. Super, super awesome girl. I know you guys have a pretty cool love story. You got married pretty young. Can you kind of talk about Dev? And I'm hoping she comes out here at some point when you and I do a retreat, because I think she would love my wife. My wife would love her. I know she could snuggle my kids real good, and play with them. So you can talk about you guys' relationship, how that's progressed, how some marriage tips maybe for people out there too.
Yeah, so we met back in early February of 2020. So COVID year, everything was going on. It was before everything kind of went nuts. We actually met under some kind of crazy circumstances. I was going to a church in Indianapolis while she was down in Kentucky, and they were having Brian Welch, who's one of the lead guitar players for Korn. He was there speaking. He had a huge transformation and stuff like that, and so he was there giving his testimonial. And that morning, there was a huge car crash on the highway. So there was a semi driver that rear-ended an entire line of cars, because the lineup of the cars was essentially out onto the highway. There were so many people trying to get into church, and one of the people that was killed in the car crash was her friend. And so I had got on Twitter after church or something like that, and they had made an announcement like, there's a terrible crash on the highway. You guys are gonna have to take a detour. And I saw her say something about that, and I was like, wow, like it gave me chills, because I was probably a minute or two when they gave the time that it happened. I was probably a minute or two away from being in that. So I just reached out to her, and I was just like, hey, like I'm so sorry to hear about what happened to your friend. I had no interest in her at that point. Like I didn't even know who she was. I just saw her talking about it. So obviously I just wanted to let her know that I was praying for her and stuff like that, because like I said, it hit really close to home for me, because I was there. That very easily could have been me. And so she lost her friend, her friend's partner, and then their baby all at the same time. And then I don't think we talked again for probably like 2 or 3 weeks. And then she had posted something about her coming up to Indy. And so I was like, hey, you, at that point I started following her and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, you want to get dinner? And she was like, yeah. And it actually almost ended up not happening, because she was living down in Kentucky at the time, and she had to get somebody to watch the dog before she was coming up. And the person that was going to bailed. And so she was able to end up getting her cousin to do it. But she came up and we went to dinner, had a blast. It was awesome. Went to church the next day, and then she went back home, and then they started talking about like COVID and closing down. This is when like all the they were talking about half of California dying and stuff like that. And so we were talking about it, and she was like, well, I was like, well, we've got a few options. You can either stay down there and I'll stay up here and I'll come see you like every other week or something like that. Or if you want to move and come up here, you can stay with me and we can just do that. So that way we don't have to worry about the highways shutting down or any of that stuff. And so her dad actually had a rental house that he had just cleared out, because we were trying to figure out, I was like, okay, am I going to get an apartment? Am I going to do like, what are our options? Because obviously like we weren't married yet or anything of that nature. So I was like, okay, what's our best option? Her dad has a rental property open up. He's like, hey, I'll give you guys the first, I think it was 4 months free. If you guys just want to come stay, I just want you guys to paint the inside of the house and essentially clean it up. So cool, no problem. So got her up there, and then essentially just started doing life together. We got married in June. June 27th. So it was a pretty quick progression of that, but a lot of that was we were just upfront with each other about what we wanted. Like she was like, I'm not having sex till I get married. I want to be a mom, want to do this, want to do this. Here's where I'm currently at. I was very upfront with the same stuff. And so from there, we were just like, I told her, I was like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want my time to be wasted. So if at any point you feel like this isn't going the way that you want it to, just let me know. And it's like no hard feelings, which that's what a lot of people struggle with. I feel like these days they just leave people on longer and longer. And like, maybe this will change, maybe this will change. And it's like, if you're just upfront with people and let them know what you want, you're going to save yourself a ton of time. You're going to save yourself a ton of heartbreak. And you're going to save the other person the same, because nobody likes breakups. Nobody likes being led on and then being dropped off. So that's really what we were just upfront about. And that, I feel like that really helped progress our relationship faster. And so then got married in June. After that, we went on, I'm trying to think what all we did. We went on like 3 or 4 trips. Like immediately following that, we went to Florida. We came down to Austin for the first time, and then we came back down to Austin again in October. And that's when we really felt God calling us like, hey, I want you to come here. And at that point, I didn't know what that was like, because she had felt like she was called here before. Like before we even met the summer before, she came down to visit and almost didn't go back home. Like she had a round trip ticket. She almost didn't get on the flight to go back home because she just loved it here. Obviously, God knew what he was doing, because he ended up bringing us both down here. And she always tells everybody that. She's like, he just didn't want me down here by myself. And so we came down here in September of last year. And with where we were at that time, I'll backtrack a little bit. I'm getting my story a little bit out of order. But in October, we were like, okay, I can either stay in Indianapolis, we'll be comfortable, we have family, stuff like that, or we can go down to Austin and essentially start from ground zero. We're going to leave everybody behind. Obviously not really leave everybody behind, but we're going to build our own thing down here. And so it took about a week, and God shut a few doors in my life. And we're like, okay, we're going full speed ahead. Straight to Austin. So we just had to wait for our lease to run up, and it sucked because I literally just signed my lease in September, and we had decided in October that we were going to be moving to Austin. So had to stay in Indianapolis until that was over with. But once that was done, we moved everything down here. We started, we got plugged into a small group, literally the first Sunday that we went to church. They had just started one. It was a young married couple small group. So we got dove into that. And we've got a ton of friendships that we've made out of that. We hang out with people in the small group like every other day, it seems like she'll have somebody come over, or I'll go get lunch with one of the guys, and it's just a really cool situation that we have set up. But right now she's getting into her photography. Like her and actually one of the other girls in the small group, they're starting their own photography business, and they've got like 3 or 4 gigs booked already. And then one of the guys that I met in the small group as well, he's one of the ones that's helping us with the land. So it's kind of brought everything full circle. And we were really intentional with when we got down here, like, hey, we're going to get down here. We don't have a church. We don't have a family. We don't have anything down here. So we have to get plugged into community, because she really needs that. And so we were like, cool, we'll do it. And God just blessed us a ton along the way. So
that's amazing, man. I can't stop to smile, because I remember a lot of our texts and calls. And so when we were, communicating during your move, and I'd kind of been on that similar where we left family and everything safe in Illinois, came to Vegas, and I remember just praying on my knees, like, God, please bring, we don't know anybody. I know a few old poker buddies that, I may or may not want to hang out with. Probably had the best influences from back in the day, but that, we didn't really know anybody either. And, God just opens those doors as he always does, man. That's amazing, man. And, a couple points I want to make here, Big Jerm. I think it's critical here to say, number one, guys, if you're out here and you're watching this on YouTube, look at Big Jerm. Look at him right now. He's a freaking man. He's a beast. He's shredded. He's got a great wife, everything. Listen to him and what he just said right there on the dating. And he was very upfront with her. He didn't play games. Don't listen to these freaking Jason Statham statue accounts out there. They're going to tell you to play mind games with women and do all this crap, dude. Do what Big Jerm did. Be upfront with ladies. Don't lead them on. Tell her exactly what you want. This is the mission that I see, my vision that I see my future going. She will hop on board. You'll complement each other and it'll work, or you won't, and you'll go your separate ways. But that's amazing how it seems like too from the beginning. And the second point I want to make is how it seems like God's really had his hand in you guys' lives from day one, man. And, even just how quick it all happened. And, I remember you saying you knew right away she was going to be your wife, and she's going to be the mother of your kids. And to see now God open doors in Austin and, took you to this, we'll call it a foreign place you'd never been, or only visited a couple times. And now shout out to Alec, all these great people, he's our videographer on our retreats. And, just the people that you've been able to meet and connect with, and now they're pouring into your life. I'm sure you're pouring into theirs. How neat that is. And when you put God in the center of that relationship, this is a very common theme of people that I talk to that tend to do this. Can you talk about how you and Dev are very intentional about that and how you do keep God in the center?
Yeah, give me 1 second. I gotta go let the dogs in real quick.
You got it, man.
I'm on the door and it's like 100 degrees outside.
On the Tyrompers No Limit podcast, we very much support not killing animals. Get your pets spayed and neutered, as Bob Barker used to say, and get them out of the heat. It's also like 110 out here in Vegas every day. And so at this point, we can't even really walk our dogs. So dog safety is important. We're all about that on the podcast. We're happy that Big Jerm let his dog. Your dogs are amazing too. You should bring them into the shot at some point, man. You got some big boys, man.
We got one, he's 4, and then the other one's like 4 months old, and she's already almost 50 pounds. So yeah, they're both Great Danes. One's a Great Dane mix, but yeah. Awesome. Can you repeat that question real quick? Just so
it seems like you and Dev from day one, how she kind of had her boundaries. Hey, I'm not, I'm not having sex till we're married. I'm placing my trust in God. And you've been the same way too, right? And I know that people think, the Christian life, you got to be perfect for this or that. None of us are perfect, but when we kind of put God in the center, and this is what me and my wife talk about all the time too, is, our marriage and in our home, we invite God into it every day. He's going to be the number one presence in our house. And to see the blessings he's poured out when we do that is amazing. And can you and Dev kind of talk about how he's opened the right doors for you guys, led you to where you are, and how you kind of make that the number one priority too?
Yeah, well, I think that he planted that seed in her obviously before I was in the picture with wanting to come down here. He planted that seed with me. I would say probably August when we came down here to visit for the first time, and I just felt like I'd never felt a pull to go anywhere. Like I hated Indianapolis, but I didn't know where else to go. And I was like, okay, well, family's here. The cost of living's cheap. Like, why not? But then when I came down here and I was like, oh, there's a totally different life outside of what I've lived. Because I lived in the same house from the time I was born until I was 19 or 20 when I had my apartment. And so that he planted that seed when we came down here, and it was just like a pull that I'd never felt before. I was like, man, I love it here. I could see myself calling it home. And so went back and we were talking back and forth, bounced back and forth for, like I said, 3 or 4 weeks. And then the door shut, and we were like, okay, well, God's clear. Like the door didn't shut in the way that I wanted it to, or that anybody involved wanted it to. But I was like, okay, this is what God's doing. And that's what I think is really big too. Like God will try to put you in the direction that he wants you to go. And depending on how stubborn you are about it or not, he'll shut the door one way or 2 ways. It'll be a great way, and everything will be like, oh yeah, it's flowers and butterflies and everything's awesome. Or it'll be like, okay, I'm just going to cut this off. Now you have to go because you don't have anything else to fall back on. And so that was probably the biggest thing, was like one, feeling that pull that I'd never felt before when it came to moving somewhere, but being stubborn and then having to follow along with that. And now just the life that he's blessed me with, like I said, the friends that we've made down here, the relationships. I mean, my job, I've tripled my income since we've come down here, which is just, I mean, I don't know. We wouldn't be able to live where we are right now if I was still making the money that I made back in Indianapolis. And so he's like, I'm going to pull you down here. It's going to be uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for like the first 2 or 3 months. I didn't have much of any money in my account. I didn't have really anything, because when I left Indy, it was like, okay, well, I had been on unemployment for part of the time with the whole pandemic thing and stuff like that. I had in-person clients that quit coming to me. And so he was like, here, I'm going to give you this client, and I'm going to give you this one. And constantly showing that gratitude and being thankful for it, I think, is what has led him to just continue to bless us. And me and her are very upfront about it, and we acknowledge where our blessings come from and stuff like that. And so, like you said, bringing God into your house is going to pay off in bigger ways than you could ever imagine. So we're just really intentional about that.
That's awesome, man. It's all a gift, man. Every day we wake up is a new gift from him, and I think that's amazing, man. I'm ending the love segment. I appreciate you giving us a glimpse into your marriage and into your life. I do want to talk about another thing, and that's how impactful I think you are with your clients. I'm certain, but even just day-to-day life, everybody you kind of come across, the common theme from our retreats, guys will say, they'll find out that you're 24, and they'll be like, BS, no way. Big Jerm's got to be 32. How, what do you attribute kind of that you're an old soul, like you're
straight up.
There's got to be a real thing, right? But, are you intentional about that? Kind of, you have a calm demeanor about you that, when I was 24, Big Jerm, I was flying off the handle, brother. I was punching holes in doors when I was frustrated with poker. I was, nowhere near kind of the path that you're on. And I see that you're going in your life, your finances, your body, your marriage, you're on this awesome track, man, that you have to be really intentional about to get there at such a young age. What do you attribute that to, my man?
I think the biggest part of it is I got my rowdiness out early. Like, I moved out at 18 and I had an apartment. And so I got all of that out of my system during that time, just having the parties and stuff like that. And then I realized, like, there's got to be more to life than doing this, because it was like spending $50 or $60 a night on alcohol just for fun. And it's not even top shelf stuff. Like, we're buying bottles of whatever we could get our hands on and having friends do it and stuff like that. And so getting that out early, and honestly just surrounding myself with people, and I tell people this all the time, surrounding yourself with people who are doing better than you and who are older than you and can correct you when you go off track, but also at the same time, people who have the lifestyle that you want to live. And I'm not saying that out of like an envious way, but like, hey, you know what? Tyler has an awesome lifestyle. Like, I'd love it at one day to not have to work, to be able to hang out with my kids all the time and just be able to go do stuff. And then from there, you start mimicking what they do, and not obviously copycat thing for thing, but you start setting yourself into that motion. Okay, if here's where I am now, here's where I want to get, here's the steps that I have to do in between there. And so I had a lot of mentors in my life who pulled me back on track when I started to fall off track and stuff like that. But really just surrounding myself with people who were doing better than me and wanted better for me. Because you can get around people who are, you know how they always say they want to see you do good, just not better than them. But I haven't really had anybody in my life that was that way. My dad pushed me to do better. I had a few mentors at church. I had some friends who were like, hey, like, you're really gifted at this, or you're really gifted at this, or you shouldn't be doing this. And so just surrounding myself with people who, like I said, make me want to be better and essentially make me better when it comes down to it, because it's very easy to surround yourself with people who, like you said, pull the energy out of you, pull you off track. And so I think that's really been my biggest thing. Like, a lot of the guys that I work with tell me, like, man, I wish, and these are like super successful guys. They're like, I wish I was in your spot when I was 24, because the stuff that you're learning now, I didn't learn until I was 34 or 44 and stuff like that. So it helps you also put it in perspective, where like, I may have somebody who's killing it in life, living their best life, whatever. And then I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, I'm on my way there. But then they're like, oh, I'm also 15 years ahead of you. Like, and I'm like, okay, 15 years. I haven't even been working for 15 years. Like, I was 9, if we want to put that into perspective. And so when people tell me that, it's like, okay, like, it sets you back and lets you realize, like, everything's a process, because it's so easy to wake up and be like, hey, I want to have a house in the hills tomorrow. I want to have like no debt. I want to have an awesome relationship and stuff like that. But you also have to do the small things along the way.
Yeah, it's like a stepping stone, I feel like, and you can't miss steps, and I think that goes both ways. I love so many points you made there, man. The couple I'll touch on is, we when you're growing up and you're a teenager, right? Like at least my parents were always like, well, you are a product of who you hang out with. And you hear this, I think almost every kid growing up, you hang around 9 smokers, you'll be the 10th, you know, you hang around 9 people that go to the gym, you'll be the 10th. But somewhere along the way, we kind of forget that as adults a lot of times. And you need to be intentional about who you are allowing to be in your life. And, you know, you mentioned earlier, you know, I know Zach Small, who's a previous guest on the pod. We love Zach Small around here. That's the group you're in, Fraternity of Excellence, right? And those men are going to push you to be better, but you had to seek that out. That didn't just fall into your lap. You had to make the intentional choice to go surround yourself with these people, you know? And so anybody listening to this, I think that's a massive takeaway. It's not going to fall into your lap, but you can go pursue these people. They're out there. You can message Big Jerm. You can message me. You can message Zach Small. You can message any of these people. We want other people around us to win and be better too. So you have to seek that out. But once you do, it's kind of a cheat code, man.
Yeah. And honestly, that's kind of the thing with like with being in Fraternity of Excellence is like, at first I was really like, I was like, it's just one of those men's groups. Like it's just a bunch of guys who all pay each other to do everything. And what I didn't realize was it was a bunch of guys who wanted the absolute best for themselves. Like you have crypto gurus, you have relationship gurus, you have guys who are just excelling in real estate. You have guys who are fitness coaches and stuff like that, and people who bring it all full circle. You have guys who are single dads. You have everybody from essentially every walk of life, and that's why I wanted to get in there, because I think I'm close to the youngest guy. I'm one of the youngest guys in there. Like most of the guys are pretty well established and stuff like that. But I'm like, okay, if I can get in here and learn from the mistakes these guys made, it'll stop me from making the same mistakes. And so, like everybody says on the retreat, and that's something that I tell everybody when I meet them, is like, they'll ask me, why'd you come on the retreat, or why'd you decide to do this? And I'm like, obviously the value that I'm going to bring to you guys, I want to do that, but I also want to learn from the areas that you've messed up in, so that way I don't fall into that same hole. It's just being efficient, really, is making sure, hey, you tripped over that log, I'm not going to trip over it. I'm going to know it's there, and then I'll jump over it and not have to worry about dealing with the stress and the struggles and all of that stuff that you did.
So huge, man. I think it's how you approach life too, and it's something I never really realized until 4 or 5 years ago. And while I'm not envious isn't the right word, and you alluded to that, like you know, because it goes both ways. You can look at a guy like me and be like, oh man, he's got a you know, the kids and the house and stuff that I want. But I could look at a guy like you and be like, man, you have freedom of time a lot more than I do. You have like, you know, you have the ability to go to the gym 2 hours a day. And let's just be realistic. When you're a father of 3 young kids, you know, you're on sleep. You know, it's different. And so I can also fall into that trap too sometimes of like looking at guys like you or some of these young guns that are just absolutely shredded, you know, so strong out of your minds, and kind of let that play into my mind too of, well, okay, I can either learn from you guys and reach out and I got better because of you, or I could say, man, it's just not fair. Like these guys have this and that. And you're either going to choose 1 or 2 courses, you know, and I found that early in my career with poker, man, because I remember getting into poker and then seeing these guys that were crushing it. And at the time I was playing $1 and $2 games, you know, but they're playing freaking $1,000 games and crushing it. And so I had a choice, like either be envious or I could reach out to some of them. And I did. And I hired them as mentors and coaches. And where that's taken my poker life has just been incredible. It bought me a lot of the freedom that I have now. But I think, you know, you've applied that same thing to your life. Hey, I'm just going to reach out to these people. Everybody generally wants to help if you come with a, you know, kind of, hey, I can teach you some things, you can teach me some things, and let's learn and grow together. And it seems like that's at such a young age, man. You just have that figured out. And that's amazing, Big Jerm. I love that, brother.
Yeah, it's all about the community that you surround yourself with. Like you said, I mean, you can be envious of what somebody has and sit there and pout about it, or you can be like, hey, you know what? They have a pretty cool life. How do I get to that? And just follow the steps. Like you said, most people, as long as you come from like a place of humility and not being like, hey, I want what you have. Like, how can I make my life as good as yours? Most people are more than willing to help you out.
Yeah, I've noticed that, especially that guys in the gym. Well, even last night, man, I went to a Muay Thai kickboxing class. First time I've ever been. Just one of the dads here, cool dads. You know, shout out to Greg if you watch this, Greg. But you know, our kids have played together and whatnot. And he just invited me to this class. He's like, bro, I've been going a couple months. I don't really know what I'm doing yet, but the instructor's like some UFC fighter. He's real cool. Come hang out, you know. And so I did, man. And he just wanted to teach and help me learn. I knew nothing about throwing punches. I knew nothing about blocking with elbow. I knew nothing. But after that hour and a half, man, I got a little bit better. He invited me back. I can't wait to go. And that's, you know, surrounding yourself and being humble and going into there. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, like you just kind of learn, you get a little bit better. Ed Lattimore's got a saying that embarrassment is the cost of entry. And when you're starting some of these new things, whether it be a business like you or whether it be, whatever it was, hey, you're gonna have some growing pains and learn. But if you get the right mentors and right people in your corner, they can expedite a lot of that, which I think you're seeing the fruit of now.
Absolutely. And yeah, and when you come to somebody, I think the biggest thing when you come to somebody for advice, take their advice, because if I'm going to take an hour out of my day to give you advice on how to do X, Y, and Z, and I see that you don't do it, I'm not going to give you my time anymore. If you come to me and, hey, I want to start a gym or I want to start online coaching and stuff like that, and I can literally lay out the roadmap for you, and I just see you over there doing your own thing, I'm like, okay, well, I wasted an hour of my time. Like, next time you want to do it, I'm either not going to work with you or you're going to have to pay for it. And so that's one of the biggest things. Like, one, don't seek out guidance from people that you wouldn't want to trade places with. That's one of my biggest things. People go to all these dating and relationship mentors and they're all single and they have nothing. And I'm like, you wonder why all of your relationships end up like theirs. Like, they hate women, they hate all of this, and this, and they're all just unhappy. And so I'm like, well, why don't you go follow somebody who has done the things that you want to do? And that's one of the big things that my wife did when she started like dating to marry and not just dating to date people. Like, be intentional with it. She followed the people who were married and had happy relationships and stuff like that and got out of life what they wanted to. And we ended up together. I think she did that for like 6 months, and we were together, and then we got married 6 months later. And so it's like, follow the people that obviously you never want to trade places with anybody, but follow the people who are doing what you would like to do. And then if you want to ask for some of their time, come at it from a genuine perspective and ask them for it. And most of the time people are willing to help you out.
It's so true. I think that's such a cheat code, whether that be Twitter or real life. I think back as you're talking about this, man, there's actually guys in my Twitter DMs that I've been helping and coaching through stuff for a year or more, completely for free. But the approach they take is the one you said. Hey, they'll come to me and they'll say one specific, I'm struggling in this area. I'm happy to take 5 or 10 minutes, hop on a call with them or give them an actual advice. Then I probably won't hear from them for a month. And they'll come back and say, hey, man, like, thank you. I've been implementing this. It's really changed my life. I might not hear from them for a couple months. Then, hey, man, me and my wife are struggling with this. Do you have any tips? Do you have anything? I'm so happy to help those people when I see that they apply this stuff. It's the guys in the other corner that are going to come and ask for advice and then give you a million reasons why it's not going to work or just completely ignore it. Okay, man, I'm pretty much done in the DMs with you.
Yeah, they take your advice, and then like you're so big on that show gratitude. Like, if I'm going to take an hour out of my day to get on a call with you and help you with something, and you don't tell me thanks at the end, I'm never going to work with you again. But if you're like, hey, man, I really appreciate it. Like, can I write you a testimonial or something like that? Then sure, absolutely. Like, I'd love to get on another call with you. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go on for an infinite amount of time, because especially when you run businesses and stuff like that, but showing gratitude goes a long way when it comes to trying to learn from other people. Like, if I come to you and I'm trying to learn something about poker and I have nothing to offer you, like, this was essentially what I did when I was growing up. If I don't have anything to offer you, I've just got to put my best foot forward. Like, I've got to find something that I can do to essentially pay you back for the knowledge you've given me. And so, what's an example of that? So, like, when I open a gym, I bring in interns or something like that. They have nothing to offer me but hard work to start off. And so they do that. Then as I see, okay, hey, they're a hard worker, they put the work in and stuff like that, that's when they start getting other opportunities. So I'm just really big on making sure that one, you show gratitude, but also find a way to pay it forward. Now, whether that's, hey, you know what, you helped me out, so I'm going to help the next person. That could be an option. Or, hey, you helped me out, I'll send you like a gift card or something like that to express my thanks for it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I think that stuff goes a long way, man. There's so many people that have helped me out along the way, and I'm big. I even once a month I write a gratitude letter to somebody from my past, just saying thanks, and that stuff goes a really long way, I think, man. That's awesome, man. Well, I can't believe it's already almost 1. I knew this was going to happen, Big Jerm, but can you kind of just give us a little more around your upcoming competition, maybe a few minutes, what your expectations are going in, how your mindset is, and then kind of maybe your future plans and goals around strongman and training and stuff like that. And then we'll hit another topic after that.
Yeah. So I'm heading into the Southwest Regional qualifier for World's Strongest Man at like not the Thor level, but like the next step down where all the guys can come compete. So it's like the guys that weigh, as funny as it is calling the 308-pound guys small, it's like 308 down. So it's like 300, 231, 198, 175 or something like that. And so it's for the guys that are obviously not freaks of nature, to be able to go compete. So that is it'll be on the 25th. It's in Houston, Texas at NRG Stadium. So I'll be competing. It's like a huge expo. And so we'll be like on the field where the Texans play. Obviously they'll have their turf and stuff out of the way, but it's part of a huge expo. So I'm going to go compete there. I'll be competing at 175 pounds. This will be my first competition ever at that weight class. Like, I take myself back a year and a half and I was 220. And so that's when I was under the mindset, eat everything and lift as heavy as you can for like 2 hours a day. And so
I remember you were eating 4 bowls when we were planning out our first retreat. You're like, bro, you gotta get all the cereal, you gotta get all you were eating like crazy, man.
Yeah, going into that first retreat was when I was heading into Nashville. So I was competing at 200. So I'm still down another weight class from there. And so it's just, I'm having to fine tune my diet a lot more, fine tune my training. I'll be going through like my first weight cut, which if I dial everything in throughout the rest of this week, shouldn't be too hard on me. But yeah, I mean, moving forward from there, if I win my class, and I'm in a pretty good spot to win that right now. There's one guy that's going to be some pretty tough competition, but who knows? That's one of the cool things is like you can see people excelling in training, but they don't show up on comp day. Or you see guys who are just average in training. Like I'd say I've had an above average training session. It hasn't been an above average training prep. Hasn't been my best, but it also hasn't been my worst. But I know how to rise to the occasion when it comes time to compete. And so that's one of the cool things about Strongman is you may deadlift more than me, but if I can do 2 other events better than you, then I can win. And so it's not just a brute strength thing. You have to be good. And that's why I love it is you have to be good at everything. Because when it comes to like the static stuff, like squatting, deadlifting, overhead pressing, benching, stuff like that, I'm not as strong as some of the other guys that are my size. But when it comes to moving events and stuff like that, that's where I really excel. And that's where it puts me ahead. And I can make up some points from some of the guys who may, like one of our events is a 500-pound deadlift for reps. And I know for a fact that one of the guys there can probably do it for 10. Realistically, with me being down at this weight, I could probably do it for 5, maybe 6. And so he's going to beat me on that event. I'm totally cool with that because I know what I have to bring to the other events to make up for those points. And then moving forward after that, if I win, I qualify for Worlds, which is in November down in Daytona Beach. And so I'll be flying out for that. And if I win, they cover my entry fee. They cover $500 worth of travel and stuff like that. And then once I get down there, that's when I'll really be competing with like the big dogs in my weight class that I haven't competed against before.
They're like all over the world, right? You come to that.
Yeah, they're all, and a lot of them are mid-30s, early 40s. Like these guys have been competing for a while, and so
that's the scary thing is you got a decade, and I mean you don't really hit your peak physically till you're like low 30s to mid 30s. You're more than a decade away from hitting your peak, man. And some of these numbers you're putting up are just wild. But I didn't really realize how much strategy goes into it too. Then like you kind of go in knowing, hey, I'm going to dominate these couple events. I'm going to train harder at these, but I might, it seems like there's definitely some strategy that goes into that. And, one thing I think when I hear you talk about how I've gone from 220 down to 175 and maintained strength through that, guys, if you're listening to this, if he can do it for himself, he can do it for you. If you're sitting out there weighing 250, 240, whatever it is, and you want to get down to a certain level, man, hire this man. He can get you there. He can program your nutrition, program your training, give you that accountability, walk you through it step by step. Even as your life changes, he'll work with you through the course of different seasons of your life and get you to those goals. So I'm a walking testimonial of that. And I always want to try and give love where I can and gratitude where I can. And honestly, man, there's nobody out there better than this man right here, Big Jerm. So I want to link all of your stuff below too. And I know, obviously great follow on Twitter. That'll be up here through the whole podcast. Where else can people find you, Big Jerm?
Instagram is the same as my Twitter. It's big_Jerm200. Sorry, my dog's doing the squeak in the background. Twitter and Instagram. And then I have a link in my Twitter if you're interested in doing like a one-on-one call, if you're interested in coaching. I have an entire page of that where I've got like an ebook and some links to a few other options. Or if you want to email me, it's just jclevenger165 at yahoo.com. And so you can just reach out to me that way. And I've had a few guys reach out to me who have been following me for a long time on Twitter, and they'll hit me up on email. I'm like, oh, who is this? And I put together the pieces, and it's somebody that I've been communicating in the DMs with for the last 6 months. And so they reach out to me all kinds of ways. But probably the most active is going to be Twitter, 100%.
Nice. And we will definitely link everything you do below. We'll put all those links below too. So anybody that wants to explore those options, I definitely highly recommend Big Jerm. It is coming to the end, brother, where let's do a little cheers with water here, man, before we get into it. This is called the rapid fire questions, man. So I'm going to give you 5 questions. I think I might have the world record on the most amount of water consumed during a podcast. Like it's just me and all my guests are always just chugging massive amounts of water, man. Because it's
Yeah.
just one of the cheat codes to life, man. But all right, these are rapid fire questions, Big Jerm. I'm gonna give you 5 quick questions. Just give me the first thing that comes to mind. All right. What is your? We already kind of went through this, but okay, I'll tweak it around a little bit. What is your lifetime best deadlift max, overhead press max, and squat max?
Best deadlift max is 600. Best overhead press is 295, and my best squat is 485.
And how much were you weighing around then? Like 200?
200 to 210. That's typically like my prime area for when I'm doing like my static stuff. When I get a little bit lighter, it throws your leverages off. Same thing when I get heavier.
Okay. Man, it's wild to watch this guy lift. Honestly, you see the bars start to bend, man, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna throw a little bit more on that. That was pretty light." And you're like, "Bro, yeah, it's wild stuff, man." All right, what's your go-to song right now? If you're trying to hit a PR, you're trying to have that crushing, that beast kind of rep, that beast kind of set. What's your go-to song right now?
I don't have one go-to, but probably DMX of some sort, something like that, where I can. And a lot of times I'll just listen to the instrumentals too, because it's just you can just listen to the instrumentals and get hype off of it as well. Because I know the words to it, and so I'm just like in my head, and I don't want to listen to people talk. Like when I get ready to go for a PR, I have my headphones in or I have the music turned up so loud that I can't hear anybody else talking. I just focus on one thing. So I don't want to be focusing on the lyrics. It's more about just the beat and stuff like that going into it. But DMX for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. DMX got some great stuff, man. Dude, as you say the deadlift max, every retreat that you and I have co-hosted, we've had multiple guys set their PRs, dude. We're talking guys that lift all the time, and something about being around Big Jerm where he tweaks their form a little bit. I will never ever forget Jared, man, where he was trying to deadlift, and then you told him, "Hey, walk outside, take a lap, reset yourself, come back. I'm gonna have it all set up. Don't look at me, don't talk to me. Just rep it." And you sat there and you kind of looked at him a minute. He went and did it, and this guy had like it was like 40 pounds more than he'd ever done, and it's just we had Nick who squatted like, was it 60 pounds more than he's ever squatted? It was like 445.
40 pound PR. I think his best was 360 and he had 405.
Yeah, just wild stuff, man. So again, I can't plug Big Jerm enough, man. I hope this whole podcast doesn't seem like I'm just plugging him, but I love the guy, man. He's great at what he does. What is the best date that you and Dev have ever been on, or what's like one of you guys' favorite go-to dates?
We love Italian food. We just found this really cool Italian spot. It's probably 5 minutes from our house, and so it's our Friday date day location. And so I'm not going to be able to. I wasn't able to go Friday, and I won't be able to go this Friday because I'm cutting weight. But as soon as we get done with that, I mean, it's just a small like mom and pop shop, and we get in there. We go there around 11:30. They open at 11, so there's nobody there, and we just have the entire spot to ourselves. But it's phenomenal. She loves the pasta. I love getting chicken and pasta and everything that they have, and they're super friendly. But yeah, it's a great place that we just go hang out and enjoy each other's company.
That's awesome, man. Those little mom and pop stores are the best. Those are the best, man. Those little restaurants, those hole in the wall places. Those are me and my wife's favorite thing too. Absolutely. All right, this one I have a major passion about. This one I wish we had a video or something we could link. Can you drop your Chipotle strategy for the people? This is the greatest Chipotle strategy. It's changed my life. So go ahead and drop the Chipotle strategy for the people.
All right. So when you walk in, if you want to get a bowl or burrito or whatever, you'll get rice. And the biggest thing with this is seeing what they're playing with. So if I go and ask for a scoop of rice, they may give me a monster scoop, and I'm like, okay, I want double. Well, they've already shown their hand. You know how it is in cars. Once people show their hand, they've got to do it again. And so they'll go through, and they're like, okay, well, this is your standard for the scoop. And then you go through, and when it comes for your protein, and they ask, okay, what do you want for protein? Tell them chicken. They think it's just one. You see how big, once again, you see how big of a scoop they have. And so then if you're like, hey, I want double, then they'll have to essentially mimic that. But a lot of times if you walk in, you're like, hey, I want double chicken, they're going to give you a half scoop of each or 3/4 scoop of each. So don't let them play you on that. Also, another thing too is getting either, if you're going to get a burrito, get it double wrapped, because they're going to pack on way more food in there as well, because they don't have to worry about it poking out the sides. You're going to get some extra calories if you're trying to train hard and pack on some size. But then everything else down the line, pack on essentially whatever you want to. Those are my two biggest ones, though. Don't let them show their hand, or make them show their hand first and then ask for double. But don't be, it's funny, Tanner did this the other day. He went in and asked them for chicken And then she gave him a full scoop of chicken. And he was like, actually, I want steak, but I only want half and half. And so she literally scooped off, after she had already given him the food, she scooped off part of the chicken and then gave him a half scoop of steak. And I was like, man, you tried to play her on that one. And he goes, you could just tell she was frustrated. But if you want to do that, go for it. There's just no guarantee that they're gonna like it. They're probably gonna try to screw you over more after that.
Yeah, the big game changer for me was I used to go in and say, just give me double meat. And then I noticed once I start saying, I'll just take one scoop of chicken. Oh, actually, can you add another scoop of chicken? And you do it in that manner instead of right away saying the double meat, then you get the 2 full scoops, because I know for a fact they tend to give you that 60%, 65% scoop. So that's been a game changer for me. Also, I love watching Big Jerm at Chipotle. He's the man there.
Also, never order online. Never order online, because you have no, like,
true.
You can't see what they're putting in there. And there's been multiple times where I've ordered it and it's been half the size of what I normally get, and they charge you for double, essentially, because they're going to charge you for it, and you're only going to get less than. There's been sometimes it's been like less than a scoop, and I'm like, I put double on there, and they fill a bowl halfway up. So don't let them play.
I like that, man. I like that Chipotle advice. Well, we got kind of already covered it, but last thing, man, just kind of like the future plans, where you see yourself in maybe a year or 2 years. What's kind of on the horizon for you, Big Jerm?
So we're looking at having at least the land bought by the end of July. So I have a friend who's essentially going to be like our main investor for the land. He's going to open a brewery right next door to us. We're going to open like a big 10,000 square foot facility. We're going to have 3,500 to 4,000 square feet of gym space. He's going to have the remaining 6,500 to 6,000 square feet for the brewery. Do a lot of cross branding through them. But he's trying to have the land bought by the end of July. From there, once we have that, we'll start. We've already drawn out like 3 different times what we want the gym to look like. Start the building process from there. Ideally, we'd like to have it done by the end of the year. It should take 3 or 4 months once we found the land, when it comes time for them to build everything, and just make sure that we can get it for the right price. Once that happens, gym will be open. We'll be moving things full speed ahead. But in the meantime, like I said earlier in the podcast, I'm getting all the back end work done. We're getting our logo work and our branding work done. We're getting t-shirts made. We're getting our website made. So that way, once we do have this, we just throw everything together and we're good to go. We don't have to play catch up and be like, oh, we don't even have an LLC set up, or we don't have this, or we don't have this, we don't have a logo. We'll have all of that stuff done so we can really expedite the process and make it a lot faster. But in the meantime, I'm just doing online coaching and trying to grow that as much as possible. So
awesome, man. Well, dude, I love you to death, brother. I can't wait to come out to Austin and bring the guys to your gym, man. That'd be a really cool thing we'll get to do in 2023, God willing, and I can't wait for that, man. Well, dude, this has been Tyrompers Podcast, episode number 38. We got the man, the myth, the legend over here. You got the fire beard. Let's all wish him well. Let's have him go crush this strong man and take down a championship. Hopefully next week we'll be following your journey, Big Jerm. I really appreciate you taking out the time to come on and share a lot of your knowledge with a lot of people, man. I know you make people better every day. Everyone that's around you is just made better by you, and I really appreciate who you are, man. So thank you for being in my life too, brother.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm sure that this is our first of several that we're going to end up doing, especially over the next coming years and stuff like that. So
definitely, brother. We expand the empire of our retreats too, man. It's super fun to do, man. All right, guys, go bless others, bless yourself, be kind to others, be kind to yourself, and let's go change the world, baby. Let's go have the greatest day of our lives. Get after it today, baby. Thank you for tuning in.